From the Spacebird Media Studios, it's Roxanne and Ace Unlimited.
Hey, what's up? We're Roxanne and Ace. Welcome to Unlimited. That means you made it to Friday. And here's the other thing, if you haven't realized, next week is a short work week. So, yay! Lots of reasons to celebrate and be thankful. This month, of course, flown by, but we're here thanks to My Brother's Cup and Birmingham Mortgage Group. Eugene Jacobs going to bring us a great Thanksgiving message a little bit later. But are you all decked out? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, and this year I'm not doing Thanksgiving. I'm
Okay.
taking some treats over to my sister-in-law's, who's generously going to be hosting Thanksgiving. So that's exciting, but I know it's your very favorite holiday, so we have to hear what you have planned.
It's good. It's the same menu that it has been for 20 years now, but or 20 plus years actually, because I was doing this before the girls were born. But yeah, I mean, there's less people coming over this year, so I feel like it's a little more chilled, or it might be a little more chilled, but we're still looking forward to it, because anytime I'm like, well, maybe we should scale back the menu. Sure enough, as I say that, my teenagers at home, they're like, no, we need that, so, I was like, okay, so we're just going to have it, and between the morning crew, the lunchtime crew, which typically is mostly family, and then the friends and family that are the crew for the evening, it all gets eaten. So I don't even worry about it. It's in the planning that I think, in the anticipation of all the things and the conversations and the people, we're all going busy, right? Like the year flew by and we're like, oh my gosh, we said we were going to get together in January and now it's almost December, so it's time flies. So you grab every little morsel of moment that you can with people.
Time to be thankful for everybody who's around that table and those who couldn't be with you. Thankfulness, a theme of this podcast as we head into Thanksgiving. 1 in 10. Jesus was busy healing everybody, and we hear about only one leper who turned around and came back and thanked him. And
Right.
He pointed that out, which makes you think, well, maybe saying thank you is important. A professor writes that he was doing students a lot of favors, and they seem to today not be able to say two words, thank and you, attached to obvious favors. And he thought, wow, we've really lost something in the fact that we don't thank people. And he was complaining to his mother about this, who was 90 years old. And she said, 1 in 10 thanked Jesus and he cured them for leprosy. Maybe we're not so special. What she's saying is, we're just like generations have been.
Yeah.
We thank Jesus when, he's healed us from a major disease, and maybe we don't thank him the rest of the time. But it's something super important to do. Your thoughts on saying thank you?
Well, I grew up in a house where, anytime you got a Christmas gift or birthday gift, that you had to do a thank you note. Like, my mom was emphatic about that. And it's kind of a dying art form now with text messages. So, like, I just tell the kids, hey, make sure you message Pops and Chammy and, whoever else gifted you. Just say, hey, thanks for the gift card, or thanks for the cash, or thanks for the sweater, or whatever. So I feel like how we communicate has changed, and hopefully would make it easier. But I'm a fan of a thankful heart, because if nothing else, when things are great, it's always easy to be thankful. But when things suck, you want to be able to still be, okay, Lord, thank you for what I'm going through. What do I need to apply that helps me through this? But what do I need to learn from this so that I can take it with me? So, everything happens to us and for us for the benefit of us. So if we can see it that way, it doesn't feel like such a burden.
Our trials strengthen us for sure. Are you a complainer, or are you thankful? As we continue our theme, are you truly grateful for what God has given you? We're in a rat race now. We want the newer car. But research shows we get that car with a new car smell, and we're keeping it perfectly pristine, and we're so excited to drive it. And we're like, oh, I'm in my car. I'm looking cute. Look at this. And then in about 3 weeks, we're kind of over it.
Right.
Not that we don't appreciate it, but yeah, it's a part of our normal routine. Perhaps the newness rubs off. And we've got to keep in mind that while we're busy complaining about minute things that really don't matter in the long run, research shows that's bad for our brain. Our brain has neuroplasticity and it wears a groove in there of complaining. So we tend to be negative because back in the old days, when we're slaughtering big animals and we're worried about how we're going to eat, things were more aggressive.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're looking around for the bad things to happen instead of saying, wow, I have a car, any car
Yeah.
that can get me to a job, maybe not my dream job, but I have a job. And a daily reminder, doing street ministry, I'm always thankful because I'm reminded just to be alive and healthy and to have a place to lay your head at night is truly a wonderful thing.
Well, and you and I had a chance to promote the new movie Average Joe, and there's actually a Bible study plan inside the Bible app right now. So if you're looking for a good one, I highly suggest it. But one of the things that came up in this week's study was in the mindset of what are the behaviors of our go-to when we were children, and how much of that do we take with us as adults? Like at some point when Christ enters our life, or we realize that we need him, how much of that complaining, woe is me, oh, I suck, like all those things are where we were as children, because either we didn't have someone to lift us up, or we didn't have the Lord to remind us of how beautiful and awesome and why we're here kind of situation. But I started to think about that. I was like, Lord, are there any of my childhood habits that I need to give up? Is that like is that a blinder that I've just been like, because if it's all you've ever known, you don't know what you don't know. But is that the thing that's either holding me in a negative mindset? Is that, because like around the house, if someone says something, well, that was stupid, or I was stupid when I did that, like we will go, hey, don't talk about my family like that. Like we call each other out in kind of a cute, loving way, but it's also to a, hey, do you realize you're talking bad about yourself? And we get into those patterns that are lifelong, and we don't know how to get out of them except by surrendering those habits to Christ.
Well, I'm realizing that you're adopted into his family. A lot of us didn't have a Disney World upbringing. It wasn't all flowers and sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's had their issues, though. I've learned that. But you know what? He is good. And when you know that you belong to him and that love is unconditional. So you've had a grouchy day. So you're kicking yourself because you didn't say the right thing in the meeting, or you didn't treat your spouse with the kindness he or she deserves. You know that you're radically loved by God and that you're forgiven. And boy, it makes all the difference, doesn't it? Well, when it comes to your home mortgage, all the difference is having a real advocate, someone who's a friend. You get that with Terren Newell. He's like great friends with a lot of the people where he's done their mortgages. I mean, some of my friends are like, yeah, talk to Terren today. I'm like, well, what's going on? Just wanted to check in.
Yeah.
He's that marvelous. He's so smart. He's going to save you money. We're talking Birmingham Mortgage Group.
Yeah, and I love it too, because now he's been doing it long enough that he's generationally helping people. So, he helped a family find their first home, and then those kids grew up and called him to start their first home. So he can be your broker. He can take care of you in Alabama and Florida, but he's also going to find those programs that fit your budget to help you. Really, if nothing, it's the miracle opportunity where you think it's impossible to get into your dream home. He makes it happen. So find out more when you go to bhammortgage.com, or you can call 205-259-1656.
Oh, the dating world. It's constantly changing what people are doing to find the love of their life. Oh, my goodness. The next thing is a pitch deck. And I was like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Well, it is simply like using a PowerPoint presentation before a group to introduce yourself. And people laugh, but 500 people will show up. And a lot of people are shy to go, look at me. Don't I look hot in this? This is my dog. This is my, so they have their friends do a PowerPoint about how wonderful they are.
Yeah.
And people are finding love through that. People are making business cards just for dating.
Wow. Well, and I know we live in, with technology, the two things that come to mind. One, I don't know if you're familiar with the dot card. So it's like a QR code that like you can scan with your phone, and then it gives people all the information. So like all your social contacts, phone number, email, whatever you want to put on it, right? So there's that side of it that I think it's like, all right, like I can see it from a business side. I don't know how I see it from a dating side, but I could. But then if people want to know you and you're on a date, you go, well, here you go, here's my stuff. It's like scan. But then also in an AI world, like how much of that is like, can you say, okay, AI put together a PowerPoint presentation of all of my great features of why someone should date me. And then you come back the next day and there's this nice little PowerPoint waiting for you in your email that you're like, oh, great. And then you just send it to the people you're interested in. But who sits through that? Like I am such a hopeless romantic. I cannot bring myself, like the dating app thing, I totally get that. And it's worked. Obviously, it worked for you and Wayne. It's worked for a lot of people I know. But in today's world, I still feel like there's that, whereas the accidental, like, oh, we ran into each other at Starbucks, or we were in the church parking lot, or, we were shopping for Christmas. There's something personal that gets left out of that when you're just like, here's all my business contacts. I'll see you Friday.
Well, and there's the PowerPoint, and the person looks absolutely perfect, checks off, as they say, all the boxes, but then there's no chemistry. There's nothing like that indescribable spark that you get when you're near the one, and you know it.
Yeah, it's like a football team. You can look at their stats on paper, and you're like, they're going to win it all. And then like they go 0-for, and there's not a single victory because it didn't gel, right? There was no chemistry among the team. So I totally agree with that.
How do you know if your employees are happy working for you? Ace, you've been a boss more than I have. My foray into being the boss was brief, and I'll admit I didn't love it. I just didn't love it. I'd rather be the employee and not the boss. But how can you tell? And a lot of it, they say, is how your employee interacts with other employees. If it's a standoffish, highly competitive, kind of closed door, kind of we don't like you environment, that's an issue. That the more your employees seem to get along and want to know about each other's personal lives, the more happy they're going to be at the office. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, for sure. And I always applaud and always encouraged that life-work balance. Like if I know that we're going to have, like if it's a busy week for whatever reason, I'll go, hey, I know we've got some long days at the end of this week. Why don't you go ahead and knock off, today and tomorrow so that you can get home early and see the kids or, whatever it is based on what I know of that person's family. Because again, as I say it to them, I hear it out loud so that I also hold myself accountable to that. Because we can't, like, we work when we need to work, but we also need to rest when we need to rest. We don't need to be guilty or feel guilty when we feel like, well, this is just more stuff I should be doing. It's not 5 o'clock and there's all the work is done. Okay, great. Go home. Like, beat the traffic, get some, surf and turf and, have a fun evening. Like, we don't have to drive ourselves and our employees into the ground, because I've always said, if you believe in the vision of the people that you work for, like the company that you work for or the boss that you work for, then you're never really going to want or have to look for another job. Like, you're either going to be promoted from within because you buy into and play a part of that vision, or you just want to see it. You want to be a part of what grand thing is happening, regardless of the paycheck, regardless of the title. It's a company that you believe in. And especially you and I've had opportunities to do ministry together. When you're doing ministry, it doesn't care what kind of boss and business blah, blah is going down the hall. When you know Jesus has called you behind the desk, behind the mic, or whatever it is, why look elsewhere? Like, okay, I know it's frustrating at times, but this is where I'm supposed to be. And that's a gut check that we have to remind ourselves of.
And give it your all. God sees, that story. I go back to Joel Osteen. He was in the parking lot and that little piece of trash flew out of his pocket and started, when a piece of trash just picks up leverage and it's going.
Yeah.
And he made that split-second decision. Am I excellent? Am I going to chase that piece of trash and put it away? Yeah. Or am I going to let it go? And sure enough, he's chasing this trash. A woman's watching him, was like, hey, Pastor Joel. Cool. And we have opportunities like that to be our best every day. And at work, sometimes it's like, are we going to cruise the internet?
Yeah.
Or are we going to give, and we think it's to our employer, but we're giving our best to the Lord.
Yeah. I think I saw a clip this week. You may have seen it too. It was Denzel Washington talking about he gives his first half hour of his day in a quiet time. Now, he has been bold and said, that he believes in Jesus and whatnot. But in this interview, he was just talking about, if the first thing you do is pick up your phone and you start swiping, you're feeding the world into your peaceful place. And he goes, I found that when I start with a peaceful spot, then when I get out into traffic, then I'm in a peaceful place so that I'm not, hey, mister, you cut me off, And I love that because, again, trained behaviors, it's not practice makes perfect. It's that practice makes permanent. So how can we get into that permanent routine? And I will even say this too, that if I find myself in a place where the world is rattling me, I do have to take a step back. Like, I need 20 minutes alone to either go pray or listen to music or just be in the silence, because chaos breeds more chaos. And that's where we have to be like, okay, God, I'm just going to, and maybe sometimes a Roxanne blend of cup of coffee might actually help with that.
Yeah, that's a good habit to form. It tastes wonderful, and it sends missionaries around the world proclaiming the gospel of Jesus. That's a great combo right there. And we're coming up on the season of giving. This has a little bit of pecan, a little bit of caramel. It's just a happy, warm, loving flavor. I got to pick it out, and I'm super picky. I want the very best. I think we got it. And you will love the combo as a gift to yourself or someone else. We're coming up on Christmas, and a lot of people have everything, Some
Right.
people that just have everything. Well, they don't have the Roxanne blend. So go ahead, log on to mybrotherscup.com, go to the Roxanne blend and make somebody happy, happy, happy. Well, the difference in emails from men and women, it's so hilarious to me because my daughter, who's now big corporate job, lots of pressure, deals with big money all day long.
Right.
She said to me, Mom, why is it that my emails are sweet? And I get some emails that are like, Wayne sent a couple things once, and I'm like, is that the way you always email people? He's like, yeah, what's wrong with that? I'm like, in one sentence with no period, it'll be, do this and this. And that's it. There's no hello. There's no
Yeah.
But they say women do too many emojis and too many exclamation points, which makes it too emotional. So what are we to do?
Well, we can't take our texting habits to our email habits. That's two different ways. That's like talking, Twitter X talk on Facebook. Like, you can't just fill it with hashtags or whatever, or, what wherever the new platform is going. We have to speak the language of what we're doing. And also remember, just because it's an email, like, email has become more personal. And then you think about how personal a text message already is. But when you get a text message from the boss or whatever, like, we create the dynamic of the communication. So then it's the same for all the ways that we talk, or even like when the phone rings. I know you don't like phone calls. So it's, it's one of those where, I'm calling you for something big, either a big thing good or a big thing bad. But I'm kind of the same way. Like, I look at my phone, and unless it's like, my family, I'm like, that can wait.
Right.
Or I'll let it go to voicemail and then, kind of filter whether I think it's worthy of me to call them back or not.
Yeah, we just got to be, I don't know. We've been talking about thank you. Maybe a thank you at the end of it would be good.
I do try to do that. I do try to say, like, if I'm asking for something, especially if I have my own agenda, like I'm trying to organize my week, like, hey, when do you think you'll have this ready? And I'd always go, by the way, thanks as always. I appreciate you. Like, I do try to end my emails that, even if it's not long or it feels like I'm, hey, But the thing I don't know if I learned this the hard way or if someone just passed this on to me, but it has served me well, is when you ask for something, asking someone when they plan to get it to you, so then you can plan your agenda around because their agenda, you're not their only agenda, right?
Right.
So when you've got things on your plate, you're ready to just go, all right, I need this, and I need you to get to me like yesterday. Like, when you treat people that way, whether it's in an email or verbally, they're out. But I always have tried to be like, hey, just checking on ETA on this, this, and this. And they'll go, oh, yeah, I'm going to get that to you by Friday. And I go, great, thank you. Because two things happen there. One, you put the ball in their court. Now, if Friday comes and I don't have it, then I might go, hey, how close are we to this? and then if you are the boss and you have to go, well, you told me you would have it by Friday. What's the holdup? And how can I help? Like, you're creating a dynamic of clearly your own deadline you couldn't meet, but how can I help you achieve that deadline so that I get what I need, you get yours done, and we can move on to the weekend. So I think if anything in your communications, you're right, the thank yous are huge, but let it be on their timetable, and then you plan. Because what I've always found is everyone else's timetable, it all ends up funneling perfectly by the end of the week. It just may be different every time, right? So whatever the play needs to be, let that be a moment of, and then they feel appreciated. Okay, they're appreciative of my time, and they're letting me dictate when this is done rather than me having to stop what I'm doing for someone else's agenda who may not have been as nice to them. That's the other thing. I don't know where someone else is in their week. I want to be able to go, hey, can I help with anything? It's just because I want it to be reciprocated to me at some point.
Well, that's masterful. You've always done that. Can I help? And that is really good. And when someone asks me that, I might come up with something I want them to help me with.
Be careful what you ask for.
I might take you up on it. Yeah. You might not really mean it, but I might take you up on it. And the other thing is, when I first started working with you, I was like, did you say that email? I'd be stewing over something. You'd be like, no, in a happy-go-lucky ace kind of way. I'd be like, you're kidding me. Don't you read your emails? You were like, not after 6 p.m.
I try. I really do. It takes, again, it's that practice makes permanent. I really had to discipline, or in most cases with technology, you can turn notifications off. So I honestly don't see it until the next morning. And then and sometimes I feel bad because if they needed something, like 10 minutes after I left the office or something, I'd be like, oh, sorry, but, again, the work will always get done. And here's the thing, and tell me on this too, like everybody's love language is different, right? So whether you're the boss or you're a part of the team, knowing and understanding how everyone receives either, clear communication or gives clear communication, you know the people that you have to really give bullet point information to. And then the ones that you can just go, do this, bam, And there are some who don't care whether you say thank you or appreciative. But if you're that way across the board, that's a good starting point. But then understanding, do I understand the people that do work for me or work around me? We're on the same team, because I don't want to tick anybody off. I want it to be a team mindset.
Exactly. And you do such a good job of that.
Well, thank you. Because you're my teammate. What can I do?
Roxanne and Ace Unlimited, where we are privileged to have some of the most prolific and just anointed men and women of God to come and give us some messages that hopefully enrich all of our lives. Our guest tonight is a dear friend. He's been on the air with us so many times. He can tell me no, but I won't like it very much. When I have him with us, pastor at Union Springs Missionary Baptist Church in Talladega. Oh, Pastor Eugene Jacobs is here to give us a very special message for this Thanksgiving week. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and thank you for having me. I hope y'all are doing well.
We're doing great. We're trying to set the tone to have a thankful heart. So how do we begin that if we feel like this has been that year of restlessness?
Oh, wow. And there's been a lot of restlessness going on this year. But 1 Thessalonians 5:18 tells us, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning us. And so you're talking about being thankful in the restlessness. I looked at the Merriam-Webster definition of thankful, and there's two that we're very familiar with. One is the expression of thanks, which we're pretty good at that. Most of us, especially in our generation, were taught just to say thank you, even if it's something you didn't like. I had a great aunt that used to give me girl toys as though she forgot that I was a boy, but I still said thank you. But then the other is well pleased. And that, I believe, is where we kind of get the wrong idea of thankfulness, because if Paul says in everything give thanks, I can't say that I'm well pleased with restlessness. I can't say that I'm well pleased with trials and tribulations. I'm not well pleased with having enemies. So then we've got to go through to a different understanding of thankfulness in order to understand how can we be thankful in that trial and that temptation, that tribulation, that sick time or whatever. But Webster gives us the first definition is being conscious of a benefit received. Now, if you're entitled, you won't see a benefit in receiving something that you didn't want for yourself. Paul saying in everything give thanks. We've got to be able to see the benefit in whatever it is that we're going through. Paul tells us in Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good, right? To them who love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So I could see myself as I grew, matured. I went from kicking tires and throwing stuff and just fussing and feeling so sad and woe is me to being thankful, because as the Lord brought me through different seasons of my life, I could look back and see that he was orchestrating certain things, that he was adding to me, right? Paul tells us in Romans 5:3 that we glory in tribulation because it's working some things out in us. Patience and experience hope, and hope doesn't leave us ashamed. James says pretty much the same thing in chapter number 1, that he says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. Why? Because it's working patience in us. And he says, let patience have its perfect work. So even though things may not look the way that I want them to look, I know that God is still bringing me to a place of expectation. He's bringing me to a place where he knows that I should be. Right. I think about Jeremiah, when God was giving Jeremiah all the doom and gloom messages about Judah, and because of their disobedience, that Babylon was going to conquer them. But in the middle of it all, God says, for I know the thoughts that I have toward you, thoughts of good, not of evil. He says, I have plans to prosper you and not to harm you and to bring you to expected end. So in order for me to see the benefit that God has given me, I've got to be conscious that even in the bad things, and even through the restlessness, even through the shaky society, the turbulent atmosphere, I know that God is bringing me to a place of expectation. So I can thank him now because I know that he's working it out for my good.
Have you ever been around somebody, well, you probably have, who is thanking God in advance for everything they've ever asked for? I just remember going, this woman is absolutely sure that this blessing is coming. She's thanking him now. I think that's such a great place to be, to really be thankful in advance for what God's doing in your life.
It is. It is. And we got to learn how to be thankful for the things most people take for granted. You know, I'm breathing. I can take a breath. And in the very breath that I just took, somebody just breathed their last breath. So I'm thankful. And it conditions us to really be more Christ-like. It conditions us to trust God. It conditions us to be obedient to God, because the opposite of being thankful is being entitled. Being entitled is when we expect to have everything that we want. You know some people who might be entitled, who seem like they've always had it their way. They were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And when they don't get their way, they just have the biggest hissy fit, even when they become adults. But we know what entitlement looks like in scripture. The Israelites, when God brought them out of Egypt, he provided for them in a place of wilderness and barrenness. I mean, he took you out of bondage, first and foremost. He brought you over the Red Sea on dry ground. He gave you water from a rock. He made bread rain from heaven. He made water pour out of a rock, but yet you still complain. So, so we've got to learn how to be grateful, because entitlement ruins us. Entitlement, there's some things that entitlement does. It causes a lack of appreciation. It causes a lack of trust in God. It causes a lack of humility. And scripture says that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. It causes a lack of character. a lack of community. You're out of touch with people and you're really out of touch with reality, and a lack of obedience. But thankfulness teaches us to learn to appreciate the things that other people take for granted. Like I said, it teaches us to learn how to trust God, because even though I might not have what I want right now, I might not have what I'm asking for, I'm still trusting God. And even if I don't get what I'm asking for, I know that God knows that I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he loves me so much to give to me what he knows that I need. Again, bringing me to us expected in gratefulness. It teaches us to learn how to be humble, to learn how to put on the character of Christ, to learn to connect with individuals, which leads to evangelism, which is the ultimate goal for a believer. And it teaches us to learn to obey God. Those Israelites, they disobeyed God. They didn't have faith in God. And for that, they lost out on the promised land.
Well, and I had a friend of mine that challenged me a couple of years ago, and it did take some behavioral patterns of changing my prayers from an ask kind of prayer into a thankful, like, Lord, thank you for what you're doing here, whether it was, healing in a family situation, or, work related opportunities, or stress, going on in the house, like thanking him for what he's doing to take us through those tasks. And, I can say a couple of years later that it's easier because I'm just surrendering all of that to God, right? Because then I can step back and go, wow, look at him at work. But it changes your dynamic with God when you stop asking and you just say, thank you, Lord.
It absolutely does. When our prayers are just ask, 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 we really set ourselves up for disappointment. And if you don't get what you ask for all the time, who do you blame for it?
Yeah.
Most people blame God, right? That's not what the Lord wants for us. So I'm with you. When you get to a place where you learn just to put it in God's hand and trust him, you're in a much better place.
Oh, it is always such a joy and an honor to have you with us. Pastor, you're doing several projects. Tell us a little bit about that and how people can get in touch with you.
Oh, wow. I was blessed on August of 2023 to pick up another job. You all prayed for me to even be full-time at the church, and that prayer was answered. And then God added another blessing to it and giving me a part-time job at the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention in Oxford. And I am the faith-based support specialist ambassador, where I go across the state and I go across the country teaching faith leaders about how to help people who are struggling with what we know as addiction. And we've got a conference coming up December the 5th and 6th in Selma, an area that really, really needs it. It's been hard hit with poverty, hard hit with a tornado not long ago, and they still haven't recovered from that. So there's a lot of hopelessness in there. And I'm thankful to get the chance to go down and minister to the faith community there on how they can actually help people.
That's awesome. Pastor Eugene, what's the best way for people to find you so they can stay in touch?
They can reach me. You can see a lot on the Agency for Substance Abuse Prevention page on Facebook, my Facebook page, Eugene L. Jacobs, or you can reach me by email, fbss.asap. Wait, that's my website. It's asapfbss@gmail.com, asapfbss@gmail.com.
That's a lot to remember. Thank you so much for sharing. We enjoyed very powerful message on thankfulness, some good things for us to hold on to. Those Israelites, man, they were not happy with daily manna. No cooking, no worries. Your food just rains down from the sky. That would be all right.
It would be, but they said we're sick of this light bread, and God gave them quail, and they still complain.
Well, this will make us very thankful for our Thanksgiving meals this year. So, Pastor Eugene, thanks for giving us a good headspace, man.
I appreciate you.
Well, before we go, we always like to check in on each other's vibes. What's yours this week as we think about what is that?
These are little, I don't know if you can tell, but they are little gnomes, and it's a man and a woman gnome, and you wrap it around your refrigerator handle.
Oh, so it's a decoration. Okay.
It's so cute.
That's adorable.
The joke was, well, I haven't figured out a way to decorate the refrigerator.
Now you have.
And so every part of my house, every room, every nook, every cranny, and the 5 trees. But the refrigerator was sad. And
I
so
get that.
now I am set for $3. I'm all good. And
See,
I'm vibing on Christmas before Thanksgiving. I know people are all screaming and hollering, but
I think
I
if
love
people
it.
are trying to decorate their refrigerator, just go back to when you used to do door decorations in elementary school. Remember, have like the
Oh
door
yeah,
contest?
yeah,
So just think of it like a door to your classroom. You could
yeah.
have like Santa's big head and his big body like that. I don't know. I'm feeling the challenge now.
Yeah.
My vibe for this week is hands down the next 6 episodes of Cobra Kai. It dropped on Netflix on last Friday, and I binged all 6 like that while everyone else was watching the Mike Tyson fight or frustrated with the stream from Netflix over that. I'm over here watching Cobra Kai, and it's set up for the last 6 episodes, which drops in 2025. It's so good. Like just when you're like, well, where's this gonna go? And they found out a way to digitally bring Mr. Miyagi back for a flashback sequence, and it just like my
Oh.
heart. I was like, oh my goodness. So I don't want to
You and
spoil it.
Wayne.
Oh,
Only you're a little ahead of Wayne, so he'll be very jealous.
it's
But
so
yeah, you
good.
guys are Cobra Kai nerds. I get it.
Wax on, wax off. It's been my life. I don't know what to. And two, I mean the series, and then of course next year with the new movie, The Karate Kid Legends, um, Ralph Macchio's getting a star on the Walk of Fame. So like it's all like lining up,
Oh.
his legacy in this one character. It's still crazy to think about that he was a full-blown adult playing a teenager and we bought it. Like we just like, no way, he's that old. Like it's like psh. And even in the Outsiders, like all the teenagers from the Outsiders were all adults. It's like Hollywood magic.
He seems like the sweetest person. Are you familiar with people who know him or interview him that he's as kind as he appears to be?
Yeah, I think he went through a season that was, he didn't want to be associated with just the Karate Kid. But then once he realized and embraced, this is my legacy on screen, then it was like, yeah, Daniel's a part of me and all the characters around him. And the Cobra Kai series is not just about, the feud between he and Johnny, but reconciliation and then teamwork together after you've been, it's just a beautiful, picture of how it all plays out when we let it. So highly recommend that. So stream this weekend while you're cooking all the things and cutting all the things. It's going to be good. Thanks to My Brother's Cup and Birmingham Mortgage Group and for Pastor Eugene Jacobs for our Thanksgiving message. We hope you have a great and awesome Thanksgiving. And Roxanne, as always, I love you.
I love you.
You've been listening to Roxanne and Ace Unlimited. To make sure you don't miss future shows, you can subscribe anywhere you like to podcast and catch up on anything you've missed. Find out more at roxanneandace.com. Roxanne and Ace Unlimited is a production of Spacebird Media.